Good evening, Jokoistas. Welcome to this Joko conversation. Not sure what that grating sound was, but welcome. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you might be watching this video. I am Brother Youssef, a member of the Joko Collective, a cultural worker, a poet, and a professor. And I am joined by my comrade and my partner, also an educator and cultural worker, poet, Tasha. Hi, Tasha.
Hi, Yusuf, and hello, everyone. Um, we look forward today to bringing more useful commentary, right? To, as we always say, add our drop in the bucket of um, in the windstorm.
Mm.
No, we are
Mhm.
part of the windstorm. Let's invoke Oya, transformation, change, and protection of the radical voice, right? And the voice of critical analysis and all of those things. And we continue to do this programming thing a little bit better every time. Um, and so, as we always start with acknowledgement of our lineage, our personal lineages that, for whom we recognize through our uh, particular set of personal experiences and internal qualities, we come to be uh, folks who are centered on creating, lending our thoughts, our minds, our bodies, our creativity to bringing into being a just world toward eradicating oppression and immiseration and all of the things that we look around and we know the world is suffering. And our first gratitude is that we have the consciousness to know that things are in disarray, and we're a part of putting the world helping to put the world in some kind of just order. We always acknowledge our African family lineage as members of the African global family. We lift up um, those champions known and whose names are some names are known, some names are unknown, but who have made major contributions in this effort to dismantle the um, structures of oppression and brutality and division and dehumanization and all of those isms we always refer to, and we understand that these mechanisms root the misery of the world, right? The um, bitter soil, right, and the poison tentacles of this, right, this great tree of horror. Right? He said I'm a poet. He shouldn't have said that because, that was not too poetic, but whatever. Um, we know that we have our work to do, and we also know we're winning. And all of the work that those great champions that we know, whose names we know and don't know, have done to help move us forward leaps and bounds, or help to dispel this darkness, right? um, in in meaningful fashion, right? In a way that really moves humanity away from uh, these issues. And we always acknowledge and forefront our recognition that we do any work we do for the liberation of the African family, any work that we are doing for the liberation of humanity, we do as people living in the colonial US, as people living in the colonial Los Angeles. We do at the hospitality of those First Nations people who are still centered in their sovereignty, who have not ceded territory, who are still in recognition of their place as the original people of this, as what some folk call Turtle Island. We recognize that we do this at their hospitality and the hospitality of their ancestors, and we look forward that they are on the other side of the veil, chopping it up with our ancestors and helping us, even as our ancestors do, to move this project to where it needs to be, to expand this project, right? Dispelling the dark and making room for the light. So, um, these are the things that we like to start with and we like to say. And then I pass the mic back over to Professor Doucet.
Well, thank you very much. And yes, that was a wonderful opening for us. And you know, our title for tonight, can we talk about Black conservatism? Because it need to be talked about. I mean, for reals, you know. The but you know, and what evoked, you know, the subject was a video I watched earlier today on the I Mix What I Like YouTube channel, right, with Dr. Jared Ball. And it was a members only video, but usually, it, and actually, usually isn't even the right word. Eventually, members only videos become available to a general viewing public, right? And you know, I would encourage you to become a member of I Mix What I Like. Um, don't you know? Nominal fee, really, right? Um, anyway, it was titled BLEXIT, HBCUs, and the attack on Black radicalism. So this was the first time I am conscious of hearing the term Blexit, right? Black exit, playing on the Brexit of the UK. Um, you know, the UK exiting the European Union as a member state, and you know, for whatever it's worth, that being a project of the British right wing, right? A pet project of what was his name? The former Prime Minister Boris Johnson of the Tory party, the UK's version of the first version of Trump in office. The and it does represent this rejection of you know, this right wing rejection of pulling out of, in many ways, pulling out of the sort of liberal bourgeois order of things, right? Liberal, you know, small L, you know, broadly, a way of describing the, you know, the I guess the character of these modern republics. The So anyway, Blexit, right? Black exit, and but the idea is that the black exit out of the Democratic Party, out of liberal politics, what the right in this country characterizes as leftist politics, but you know, left starts at the center for them. Right? But it certainly is, you know, there is such a clear rejection of actual leftist politics that it's not even mentioned, right? It's, you know, just completely kind of disappeared from, you know, public discourse. Um, So anyway, this is the idea, but it's not black exit from the system at large, right? It's not black exit from the duopoly. It's not black exit from the system. There's nothing black nationalist about it, right? That one, might think a Blexit might be. There's nothing about it that's even talking about any kind of black sovereignty, right? It's
Mhm,
specifically within
mhm,
the within the narrow frame of the duopoly, moving from this capitalist party to that capitalist party, the one that has fully embraced open fascism indeed has been the refuge for all those Dixiecrats that fled out of the Democratic Party post Voting Rights Act and Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act, right? The So this Blexit, Candace Owens, the what's his name, Officer Tatum, the former police officer or sheriff, police officer of some agency from Tucson, Arizona, um, funded, platformed, sponsored by Turning Point USA. And
yeah,
um, per the uh, per the flyer that Jared Ball shares on the video, um, a little picture of Charlie Kirk right in the center, right as they're, they participate in the uplifting of an open racist and proponent of the great replacement theory that is responsible for a lot of damage. Um, right there on the flyer. So anyway, that got that is the genesis of our conversation tonight. Blexit is planning a tour of HBCUs um, to con- to effectively bring the mission of Turning Point USA to Black colleges. Another version of white power in blackface, right? Coming forward. Anyway, that's why we here tonight. That's what
mhm,
we talk
mhm.
about. So, the video right now again is members only. I had thought to share it, but then that felt like, well, that's a breach, right, of the members only. Um, Even just sort of understanding, right? Because the videos that are members only become public. So, recommend you to look out for the I Mix What I Like YouTube channel or website. Um, and it'll be coming up, right? It'll be coming up maybe in a day or so. Uh, so anyway, so you can get a full look at Dr. Ball's breakdown, right, of the who teaches at an HBCU, one that is not on the tour schedule. Um, anyway, some of the people platformed. Just to give you an example, right? Besides Candace Owens, Officer Tatum, who's new to me, right? I saw recently some black content creators, commentators, right, users of this. I'm not, we're still calling it new media platform, but these alternate, um, but still corporately owned platforms. Some folks had challenging him, right, on some of his claims and stuff, and maybe even something about, you know, uh, some backlash, some racist backlash that he didn't expect as a MAGA supporter, perhaps, right? Something like that. So anyway, He's new to me. Candace Owens, a little better known, right? But for us here in Los Angeles, right? If you just to have a sense of the kind of people Blexit is platforming, where they're coming from. If Candace Owens wasn't enough to understand that, or Turning Point USA sponsoring wasn't enough, um, I think the first speaker identified not none other than LA's own Larry Elder, right? The sage of South Central, he likes to call himself sometimes. The so these mouthpieces for empire, right? These mouthpieces for maintaining relations as they are, and whose foremost job is always to blame black people for our condition, ignoring, right, the systemic dynamics, right, at play. Anyway, that's why we're here tonight. You want to drop anything in about these folks, right? Black conservatives. And well, anyway, what you want to drop
Okay.
in?
Well, it's interesting. I couldn't watch the Jared Ball's analysis, but there's
Mm-hmm.
plenty on the internet, and plenty of as they're expanding and promoting and what have you. I guess Blexit specific content. So I did get to look at some of that, and you
Mm-hmm.
know a study in the nature of propaganda, something that
Mm-hmm.
and the hollow nature of propaganda when they're not directly generating false information, like literally lying.
Mm-hmm.
It's always right. As we understand, it's always these broad, provocative strokes. These, you know what I'm saying? That it's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
speaking and very little meaningful substance, right? Which,
Yeah.
of course, we as Americans are, very much accustomed to, right?
Yeah.
So no need to talk facts and have argument for um, groups that aren't in the habit of and in the practice of um, utilizing facts and working through arguments, right? You don't have to come with the good,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
that whole comment about, and I'm not talking about the comment that Trump made, smart people don't like me or what have you, that people make
Mm-hmm.
fun of that, but the off-sided, um, I guess, factoid that a lot of the people who are thought of as so brilliant and such brilliant contributors to society in various fields were socialists, were these
Right.
leftists.
Right.
So that's a good place to start, right? This whole equating the Democratic Party in America with left politics, right? This kind of, very empty, hollow, non-substantial, you know, inaccurate, kind
Right.
of um trope that they're creating, that's being creative, that's in the narrative. And of course, all, can't only has effect because of the ears that it falls on, right? We don't
Mm-hmm.
know anything
Mm-hmm.
about left. We don't know left from right. We have
Right.
no, you know what I'm saying? We literally think the divide is Democrat Republican. So therefore
Right.
it's going to have effect, right? And so one of the things that I looked at, I think I'm going to start with um, this. Let's see, where is this? Where is this? some of they're talking all of these things, right? I looked at one of the shorts by one of the um faces. I don't know who he is, but I know he's one of the, one of the people on the posters and one of the faces
Hmm.
of this work. And this kind of short about, yeah, we're bringing the message. Someone's asking him, so what is Blexit doing for the Black community? Oh, we're doing a lot of work, and we're the biggest organization of our kind, and we're doing this, and we're bringing the ideals of economic independence, dependence on God, free market capitalism, and nuclear family, and so many other things, spreading that message. And what was the first thing that struck me is that there's nothing new about that message. There's all kinds of, what I'm saying, Black community has been, as a quote unquote American, as as any other community, and still not of the politics of repression,
Hmm.
oppression, brutality, extraction, any of those things,
Hmm.
right? And none of this, this whole presenting these things as if it's somehow new. You know what I'm saying? These
Right.
are largely aligned with the um so many
With the pronouncements of the Democratic Party and Democratic operatives. I mean, there is nothing
and
about it.
first of all, that, right, there's
Right.
nothing that distinguishes it, right?
Nothing.
There's nothing that distinguishes it, so it's interesting. There's nothing that distinguishes it from narratives in our own community. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? We
Hmm.
need economic independence. We need,
Yeah,
I'm saying, to some extent,
exactly.
um, nationalist
We
narratives.
need
You
to
know what I'm
embrace
saying?
some kind of Black capitalism. Right?
We need to embrace some kind of Black capitalism. Also,
You know, what is it? What
underinformed.
is it? Recycle Black dollars. I mean, that's right on that.
That's right up the alley. And we do that and have done that for decades without it
Yeah.
translating into some kind of conservatism,
Yes.
right?
Right.
But their wedge point. So the brother was doing that. I was like, okay, there's nothing here that's new and different. How do they make it new and shiny? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, this is so different. And we know a
Hmm.
lot of rhetoric and whatnot. So another short, one of the faces, is they're
Hmm.
out doing their thing, talking to young Black college students, and so she asked this young man, so do you think you have anything in common with a Black conservative? He says, no, ma'am, I don't. And so she says, well, and there's three pieces, and I only remember two. She's like, well, do you believe in entrepreneurship and uh, economic independence? Yes, ma'am, I do. Do you believe in accurate representation of Black history? Yes, ma'am, I do. Do you believe in something else, some other superficial, innocuous kind of stuff? Well, then you have everything in common with Black conservatives. He, right? You know what I mean? And this is like this little short. And so, again, right, this kind of, you see the approach, and it's just some kind of
Hmm.
study propaganda.
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
when I say studied, because
Hmm.
there is an amount of research,
Because
that has
yes,
gone into figuring out what will be the pressure points, what will
these are
be things.
techniques, and people receive training in those techniques. And Turning Point USA has the
Mm,
resources to train people before
people
they send them out into the field on a campaign,
on
which
a
again
campaign,
is a military term.
military undertaking, a campaign, a military undertaking.
Yes, that's
Absolutely.
right.
I literally, yeah, work daily
That's
to
right. And
get
it's a
that.
short. And you say that piece is
It
a
was a
short,
short. Yeah,
which
it
again
was a
is
short.
an effective, because at each one of those
Yes.
points, you know, just because we agree on this general notion, do we agree what economic independence means?
Right.
How do we define
Absolutely.
economic independence? All this stuff
Absolutely.
that's
All of
not even
this.
the point, right?
So, but
Yeah.
it's the same thing that is working for their MAGA in other
Hmm.
communities. Though
Hmm.
they haven't like named, say, an Asian community, though we know there are Asian MAGA, we know it's there.
Yeah.
They haven't named You know what I'm saying? This kind
I
of a
mean,
specific.
those were the folks who, were mobilized to go after affirmative action in the Ivy Leagues, right? That then
Yes,
undermined them, right? That,
yes,
that, again, somebody did the
yes,
research to see how do we split,
yes.
oh, there's the issue.
How to right this, manipulation. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, again, I have more to say, but again, the need for amplifying critique, amplifying information, calling out misinformation, debunking shit, the need
Mm-hmm.
for that. But
Mm-hmm.
so I think what I was going to say, what was I saying? Um, well, let me go back to the this kind of approach,
Well,
this
in
kind
the
of
minute, yeah,
talking
yeah,
point,
that particular kind of
generating yeah,
approach. Yeah.
generating these talking points that people repeat. That's what I was saying, that what uh, it works, it works for the reasons that it works, and it will work for any community. And we see it with the ADOS rhetoric, which is very thin,
Mm-hmm.
very insubstantial, presented by
And
a
also
scholar,
AstroTurf, right?
scholar, definitely
Mm-hmm.
astroturf, you know what I'm saying? And this piece, um, all of this, having all the markings, because like Yvette Carnell, we get to see her in her looking like any other AFM history professor,
Mm-hmm.
Africana studies professor, with her short afro and her baby locks and her this and her that, running this down as if, as if
Mm-hmm.
she's, the people that the community listens to, right? And this
Mm-hmm.
is feeding off, you know what I'm saying? It's not, it's sophisticated, is what I'm saying. It's sophisticated. I mean, it's not that deep, you know what I mean?
No,
But
but yes, it's
it doesn't have
sophisticated.
to be. But
Exactly,
it also
right?
doesn't have to be. So, but another thing that I noticed, I looked at a Blexit interview, not interview, a Blexit video of Charlie Kirk talking at a Blexit event, right? And it's all about Charlie Kirk's vision for the Black community, something like that's. I think that's the name of it. I'll
Why
find it.
why are Black people interested in any white person's vision for the Black community? I'm sorry.
Well,
I just
that's that's
well,
interesting, right? That's
any white
well,
person's vision for the Black community. I, I'm, I'm coming to you with a plan. I mean,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
That
I'm sorry.
on on its
That
face.
just
But so
triggered me.
anyway,
That
Carl,
triggered
yeah,
me. I'm
Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was, addressing this group of Black people, and the Blexit, the big shiny
Mm-hmm.
Blexit
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, tapestry, or put whatever you call it, backdrop, and whatnot. And so where does he go? He goes to what he understands to be, right, what he's been given to understand, and how the script is orchestrated around God. The Black community has always been a God-centered community, and the God this, that, and the other. And within his little chat with things, I only had time to watch the first 10 minutes of this video, and within this time he was able to insert several digs at the uh, non-gender conforming community and non-heteronormative community. He was able to insert some little digs, right? And evidently one of his formulas is, he made some kind of dig at the pride flag, and then one of their little formulas, little snappy blurbs, is little snappy bites is, um, pride is a sin, or something about the sin of pride, and just whatnot. But what was interesting, he's going on, he's talking about the freeing the slaves in the Bible, and he's given his whole shebang. What I noticed was the quietness of the audience. There was no visceral response. Every now and then, like with the little anti-gay dig, and the you know what I mean. He didn't get into trans stuff yet, but in the little anti-gay dig, there was some scattered applause and hoots and whatever. But for the most part, there was no response to his call, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked at the numbers, right? This thing has been up for 3 weeks, and there has been what there are 22,000 subscribers, which they can do on their own. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To this, it might be a BLEXIT channel. I'd have to look closer, and it's had uh, 1,000, like 1,500 views, which for something that is hot, as Mr. Trump says, something that is you know what I'm saying, a popular idea, something that is catchy, that's nothing, particularly with
Mm-hmm.
the kind of money, promotional money that they have. So it,
Mm-hmm.
it, it speaks to a level of just a level of disinterest, a level of nobody said, oh, you got to see this, you got and there was a handful of comments, maybe
Mm-hmm.
12 comments, right? One of which was uh empty, this is empty propaganda, kind of, that kind of comment.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few of
Mm-hmm.
the ones that you would expect. Oh, I knew Charlie wasn't a racist. You can't be a man of God and be a racist because he's truly a man. Anyway, a lot of
What people have been saying forever, right? And or forever, at
right.
least as long as the
And
idea of racism, what people mean by it in the modern world. I mean, come on,
yes,
there,
yes, that's
there's racist theology. I mean, come on now,
right, right. And anti-racist theology.
and
There's right.
anti-racist theology. That's
There
right.
is the relationship of the
Yeah,
fascists in Europe with their churches,
yeah.
and the social Christians, and the
Hmm.
you're right, and
I
all of
mean, we
that.
just
So
saw ICE shoot two of them, or in
right,
Chicago, right? But the
right.
one minister get pepper sprayed in the eye, and the other one get hit in the
Hmm.
head with a pepper ball. So,
Yeah,
yeah, because they were out
yeah.
there on the right side of history.
That's it.
What do they
Absolutely.
call witnessing, right? Witnessing their faith.
Right. Right. So, and that is really probably my last uh comment, like kind of initiatory comment in
Hmm.
the conversation, that whole God as center, the whole, as people have been decrying forever, the
Yeah.
commandeering of the Christian and faith identity by
Hmm.
these people,
Hmm.
And so, Mr. Barber, what's your position on
And
Christianity
again,
and
a
left
long tradition
politics?
in the
Mr.
United
King,
States.
Mr. King, what is your right? Mr. King, what is your position on Christianity? I guess I should say Dr. King, right?
Mm.
Doctor of Theology, Martin Luther King Jr. Um, what is your commentary about right, about the connection between Christian principles and left politic principles? So, and so they throw around a lot of, just a lot of empty phrases. And, he said something about, and this Marxist whatever, and this, kind of Black community has too long been, the tools of the left and whatnot, and all of this Marxist, because that's still supposed to have that taboo power to say Marx, to
And
say
that's all
social.
because they don't really, I mean, everybody's a Marxist, right? What was the thing Trump did, what, however, a month ago or whatever, strung
Mm,
together all a socialist, fascist, Marxist, communist, or just,
it's
it doesn't matter,
crazy.
right? It doesn't matter. They don't
Right.
understand. Well, they understand fascism, even if when they pretend not to. But
Yeah.
yeah, right, because of that expected power of
Right.
you, of the boogeyman word, right, um,
Yes.
and the silence, the relative silence, that, right, because that it's however much
Yes.
and however much it's platformed, right? And that's
Yes.
as much as anything the attack, right? The ability to
Yeah.
platform these voices. Again, how
Yeah.
long, you know, Larry Elder is still on the air, isn't he? For how
Absolutely.
long at KABC? Or maybe he's
Right.
at KFI. And maybe
Right.
he's there. I don't know because I don't listen to either.
You're not right. You're not
The
studying Larry. Yeah. Go
right,
ahead.
but
Yes.
for how long? I mean, who's platforming him, right? And um, those folks they have deep pockets behind them, right? Mentioned
Yeah.
as you were talking about Yvette Carnell and the whole ADOS movement, which is more or less kind of quiet, but nonetheless still out there being divisive, sowing
Yeah.
seeds of division among Black people. The
Yeah.
But again, I'm drawing a blank on her name. It's little, I'm drawing a blank on the sister's name who, put together a presentation,
Yeah.
um, going through their background, right? And again, called them
Right.
AstroTurf because she identifies the deeply right wing, white activist foundation that sponsored them, right? Underwrites
Right.
them, gets them started
Right.
again, like Turning Point USA, because
Right.
you just talked about them inviting Charlie Kirk, and again, there's old Saint Charlie in the middle of the current flyer,
Yes.
and who is platformed 10 years ago by a Tea Party billionaire, right? So, and
Mm-hmm.
again, whatever, and never dismissing and excusing the failures of the Democratic Party, because they can only
Mm-hmm.
do what they're built to do, and that is ultimately, promote the empire and capitalism. Just a
Mm-hmm.
different, a reformist version, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the notion that Black people who vote for Democrats are doing so without reflection, right? Without assessing the choices before them, and even if it is choosing the lesser of two evils, it's lesser,
Mm-hmm.
right? That means something sometimes, right? It
Mm-hmm.
means something if you have to choose between a fast acting poison and one that gives you time to get
Mm-hmm.
to an antidote, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
if
Yes.
I if I'm forced to choose in that kind of situation,
Yeah.
and again, if I'm forced to choose, right? And I know there's that choice of, that I won't choose either. And then and then in effect you go with the winner, so to speak, right? Abstention is in its effect a vote for whatever wins. I get
Mm-hmm.
that too, but
Mm-hmm.
Black folks continue to demonstrate, I think, um, their a critical assessment of the political situation. Those who choose to vote, that there is not great love for the Democratic Party as such, but there's a practical approach among a significant number of the black electorate, right? So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And again, what are we blexiting just from one party back into
Mm-hmm.
another party,
Mm-hmm.
and the party that has
Mm-hmm.
been openly in support of white
Yes.
supremacists and a refuge for
Yeah.
open white supremacists
Yeah.
since the mid 1960s.
Here it
You know,
is. Yes.
I mean, period.
Yes.
You know, However much they want to deny that racism still exists, which is always their talking points, right? And particularly not on a system level, aided and abetted
Yeah.
again by the general
Yeah.
culture that only wants to talk about racism interpersonally, and
Yes.
continues to have difficulty with a systemic analysis, right? And a systemic
Yes.
analysis of all of these various um, relationships of power and the uneven distributions of power, hierarchies of power, all rooted in these systems. And what is a
Mm,
principal character of a system? To reproduce itself, right? So and thereby
mhm,
reproducing
mhm,
the inequalities, right? The inequities. They don't want to
mhm,
talk about that, right? And
mhm,
and including the so-called left, right? The white left,
mhm.
and some of those I don't see
Yes.
color black leftists, right? And other
Yes.
people. So
Yes.
anyway, things we can't talk about, like colonial character of relations, racism
Yes.
as
Yes.
colonial ideology, right? The
Yes.
justifying ideology for these colonial relations and
Yes.
a reproduction, of them. And it's that hot stuff. Yeah, this is what Trump means, right? The country is hot again because yeah, open racism, open, you know,
Yes.
proud, full-chested racism is back, y'all. They're reveling in it. They get to say the stuff they always been wanting to say,
Yeah.
and their numbers are lower, right, than they were, but they're feeling fully empowered
Mhm.
and they have a state behind them
Yeah.
now, right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
there
Yes.
was something else I
And
wanted
it's
to say about, but yeah, it'll come back to me.
okay. Um, and whenever it comes back, just pop on in, pop it on off. But I remembered what that third thing was in the short.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Mm-hmm.
believe in police reform? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an indication of the pieces that they're going to be building on,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be able to say to
Yep.
what I don't know how they'll be able to use that, but they certainly could say, um, mass incarceration was brought to you by a Democrat, not a Republican. It
Mm-hmm.
was, Democrats that
Yeah, with Republican votes,
yes,
though. I mean,
absolutely. It don't matter because it's what you know what I'm saying. What matters is the imagery of Clinton
right.
signing the crime bill and all
Mm-hmm.
of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, all of this is a house of mirrors. It depends
It's
on all of
nice.
these very superficial, which also makes it. I'm gonna. I don't know why I'm saying this, but it should make it easy to take down. It should make it easy to
Mm-hmm.
take down, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm quite sure with this Turning Point USA invasion or this attempt to generate um,
You're
this
getting
kind of
you're getting blurry. It's funny.
okay, I don't know why. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, whatever.
Maybe
Keep
it's
going though.
yeah.
This
Um
Blexit invasion or this turning point
yeah,
invasion.
the attempt to create the turning point effect in the among black young people,
Mm-hmm.
among
Mm-hmm.
young black adults, we should say, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um we'll see because I mean, folk are aware and already are, pushing back because I see as
Mm-hmm.
many, of these little pieces on, not cuz, I mean, I'm not mistaking this for
Mm-hmm.
some kind of research or analysis. All I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying is, there are quite a few voices, that are saying, and here they come for your, they're coming
Mm-hmm.
for your young
Mm-hmm.
people. This one sister,
They're coming for your
uh,
young people.
they're coming for your young people. They're coming
And
for
they
your
are.
kids.
That's exactly
If
what
you
they're
have
trying to
a
do.
kid, yes,
Mm-hmm.
one sister who is a regular programmer, and she's got plenty of followers, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, she I would not describe her at all as she is regular black folk with regular black folk common sense and some, an analysis and analytical ability and a lot of his, you know what I'm saying? Common historical memory. She's
Mm-hmm.
not a scholar. She's not using the popular lingo, movement lingo,
Yeah.
none of that. You know what I'm saying? But she is clear, about these politics and, is compelled to be in that conversation. And so she did uh, a short recently, maybe two, um, And she said, okay. And so she said, Black people, they're coming for your kids. If you got a kid at an HBCU, and then she listed all of the uh, HBCUs that are on their tour, they're coming to da 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 da. And they're
Hmm.
right. So and there was another sister who was doing something who was a little bit more ideologically uh seasoned, a little bit
Precise.
more
Okay, yeah.
ideologically, yes, speaking through the, language of ideology, who put up another quite sharp and concise,
Hmm.
conversation about this. And so, and
Hmm.
also a comment about, don't go out there and challenge them and give them fodder for
Right,
more
that part
propaganda
again, and
videos and all of
that was
that,
one of the points Dr. Ball made, right, and really repeating Feminista Jones, who I think brought it to his attention,
Mhm.
or a post he saw,
Okay.
that
Okay.
right, that in this
Yeah.
case the recommended response is to ghost them, basically. Don't show up,
Mhm.
don't counter
Mhm.
protest, just
Mhm.
ghost them. I know Dr. Ball suggested perhaps counter programming somewhere else, but the main thing is
Mhm.
to ghost
Mhm.
them, right? Do not give them
Mhm.
what they want.
Mhm. And one
And
of
I
those
and I
places,
agree with that, right? However one
yeah.
wants to go about it, ghost them. Don't show up.
Mhm. 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 And come into their theater, come into
Right.
their spectacle
Be their
of
comedy creation.
nonsense, of
Yeah,
nonsense and nonsensical,
exactly.
intellectually
I remembered
dishonest
what I wanted, the other
pseudo
point I wanted
debate.
to make.
Yeah.
And that's about, that we can't leave it unsaid. It needs to be said. The levels of internalized colonial ideology, the internalized racism,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
and the class character of that, right? um, Working class Black people, poor Black people, are despised, and
Mhm.
despised often, very
Mhm.
much by bougie Black people,
Mhm.
and by these Black conservatives, right? And all this language that,
Mhm.
again, with the openness of racism, again, all this talk about people being emboldened, right, to talk publicly about
Mhm.
Black culture and
Mhm.
its depravity, right,
Mhm.
its so-called depravity and all this other stuff. People who don't know
Absolutely.
nothing about nothing that has anything to do with Black people, but it doesn't matter, right? Because this is the public perception. This is the perception that has been promoted for, again, decades, through popular culture,
Mhm.
through the misuses and abuses of popular culture and imagery, and controlling of the frame and the narrative and what gets to be popular and
Yes.
all that type stuff, and just
Yeah.
the outright lies that people have said, just repeated forever, around crime, and um, family and fatherhood, and again,
Some of it. Some of it.
no analysis of the changing economy, the character of families generally, in the
Yes.
etc. in the country, right? The changes
Yeah.
globally that
Yes.
neoliberalism in particular, right, has placed on
Yes.
families, which has been
Yes.
um, evolving in the modern era. But no, we don't have conversations like that, right? Again, this, as you pointed out earlier, right, this retreat to this conformist bourgeois ideology of notions of the family, right, the nuclear family, whatever economic independence is supposed to mean, what entrepreneurship is supposed to mean, etc., right? And the a
Yeah.
commitment to the delusions of capitalism, that and the delusions of colonialism that are required, right, for its function. What is it? I
Yeah.
think Dr. Amos Wilson would
Yeah.
often say, and others, Franz Fanon, right? They have to keep us sick, right? We have to stay sick, right? We have to stay disassociated and off kilter, and in
Mm.
questioning our what constitutes our authenticity and etc. Right, um, and that that self-hatred, that internalized racism, that internalized colonial ideology, that internalized class ideology is a powerful fuel, right, for this kind of activism and
Right.
these moves, again,
Yes.
to try to achieve the impossible, to to become white in some kind of way. We talk
Yeah.
about some of the other ethnic groups, right? Not quite white or almost white or want to be white, and yeah, still remains true of Black people, regardless of
Absolutely.
complexion. You know,
Absolutely. Because, so because there are, respectability is the
respectability.
means,
Mm-hmm.
is our means,
Mm-hmm.
to, what is the word? Approximate. And by approximate, I mean get closer to, you know,
Yeah.
to this elusive thing. And I mean, there's no reason why a state of mind, a mentality, 600 years in the making should be uprooted. Just, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? There's no reason
Mm-hmm.
why it shouldn't be that, you know.
Yeah.
And in all the ways we um, participate and perpetuate, the contradiction between our uh, rehabilitated human image, right, and our
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
conditioned. I always go back to scientific racism. We are still in the
Yeah.
era
We
of
we
scientific
yeah.
racism. Our culture is lower, our this is this, and we're this and
Yes.
that, and
Yes.
all of the things, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we as African descendant people are the worst of the worst, So
Uh, every
all of
time
those
Trump asserts some Black woman's low IQ,
low
he's
IQ, but
he's
and
referencing
that
scientific
absolutely,
racism.
absolutely, absolutely. And you know, and and all of them and all of the,
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And that we understand. And to reiterate what you said about the scapegoating of uh Black working class people, the scapegoating of poor Black people, right? Um,
Which we
as
must always
that's
remember is most of us.
is most of us. That's us. You know what I'm saying? And not only is it most of us, but these few handful of people that claim these lineages that, well, we were never enslaved and our family goes back to, okay, well,
All two of you, thank you.
all two of you,
Right.
you go ahead and do what you gonna do with that. I don't know what you're gonna do with
I
that.
mean, that
You know what I'm
makes
saying?
me, you
No.
remind me. I have to look. I think John Hope Franklin actually, shares some numbers, right? And of course, the enslaved population dwarfs the quasi-free, as he puts it, population, right? So,
You know? It's like, and so, yes, and
and
what is
so,
that? Well, that okay, well, if that's the case, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the problem. We're talking about
thank you.
the problem of oppression and what it looks like. And so if you're not oppressed, cool. You go over there and not be oppressed, and the rest of us will deal with this. Because I
Hmm.
know that and this thing of
Hmm.
what Black people mean, how we define internally social mobility. And this is a cultural thing, so we all know how this works. This isn't, it should be developed with some academic rigor. We should study ourselves and study our thinking, and and from a point of view of social psychology and whatever we want to
Well, those
do.
studies are under attack, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, we know that. So we got to find ways to preserve those independent of the
Hmm.
institutions. But the our ways of defining social mobility and the way that we define a middle class existence and then begin to take on and perform a higher class, meaning I am not the lower class Black. I don't dance like that. In fact, I don't dance very well at all.
To take the
You
more,
know,
take on the
I
mores of a
don't.
colonizer. Yeah.
And isn't that just terrible?
Let's
The
see,
silver
Dr.
sex
Hare, I think.
movements and all of these things.
What was the
Um,
phrase Dr. Hare came up with? Afro Saxons, I think, right? To become
Oh, I
Afro
like that.
Saxons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Afro-Saxons. I mean,
Yeah.
but that's what it is,
Yeah.
that harkens back to the notion of, how do we, can we make a Frenchman out of the African? And the,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
resounding yes, the African become a Frenchman. And I mean, and that's not new. That's part of systematic control and
Mm-hmm.
understood to be. Like what do we do with
Yeah.
all these numbers of people? We
The
cannot
same
kill them
way
all.
we can make a Roman out
We
of a
cannot
Numidian.
be so it's not a new idea. This
It's
is
not a
not
new
new,
idea.
right?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, our notions of our internalized notions of social mobility um, also have us very confused. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? What we call ourselves middle class, and like all of this conversation about destroying these civil service jobs and the federal
Mm-hmm.
administration jobs and all of these kinds of things,
What you mean? What you
and
mean?
how it
The jobs that underpin the Black middle class?
those yeah, those jobs,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
The jobs that underpin the Black middle class, the jobs that
Especially
and
with
there are
deindustrialization.
huh.
I said, especially with deindustrialization the last 50 years.
Especially, but
You know?
that's too much context. It's too much
Mm-hmm.
context. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
it's too much context because part of what we know, like if we get two houses, shit, we have arrived.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? One
Mm-hmm.
house. Literally, the
Well,
conversation I
one
was
house,
listening.
right? One house,
Literally,
because
the conversation.
one house is what most people are trying to achieve and don't.
Yes, and all of that is defined within a very American, the American dream,
Yes,
the a very
exactly. And if you get
American
you a house
way.
and an apartment building for some, what do they call it? Income property.
You are rocking. You are rocking. You have now become a capitalist. You
You
have,
have now
you know what I'm
become
saying?
you have now become a landlord.
You now become a landlord. You've now, and you're in a different position and have a different
Yes.
point of view. And literally, the conversation I was listening to today, um, the sister was talking about her kind of inner scruples about how to be in the struggle and yet not struggling and not being,
Mm-hmm.
having come out of
Mm-hmm.
poverty and what have you. And she herself said, mind you, and in moving into tree-lined streets and all these things. And she said, mind you, I've only been here for 3 years. And she kind of laughed at herself. But this kind of internal debate and this kind of internal conversation was very real and very sincere. But we are clear that home ownership and the tree-lined streets is not wealth on of any kind. That is not wealth. Your mortgage does not make you wealthy. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That does not make you, even the smallest kind
Yeah,
of property
particularly
owner.
in,
This
compared to
kind of
what actual wealth is, right? The
what
owners of
actual
the
wealth
world.
is.
I mean, it's that, right?
Precisely.
It's in
Precisely. And this
comparison,
whole
yeah, to really understand the
well,
system, the economic system, and again, we are
which
not
we
encouraged, and by we meaning no one in this country is
no
really
one.
encouraged to understand the economy,
No,
the economic system. A
no.
student asked me that, I think, what, last year. Well, exactly what is the economy, right? As it's just taken for granted. It's a word thrown around and taken for granted, but
Absolutely.
no one gets a real
No,
education about what
no.
these dynamics are, what that means, right? How they contribute to the economy as students, right? even as a student without a
Absolutely.
job, right? You're still contributing to. So yeah,
Yes.
folks don't.
Yes.
That's why they think that, a house, and then anything
Absolutely.
beyond a house, and you own this and that too, or you're paying a mortgage on this and that too.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so but internally, we define that we equate those acquisitions with the social mobility. We're moving on up,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
then again, begin to take on a different and very specific for us. And I'm sure similar with other impoverished communities. I'm sure it's not very different. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we generate our own narratives of social mobility, our own narratives of class, and begin
Hmm.
to, you know what I'm saying? Oh, we're not in these uh city housing, we're not in projects, we're not in this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 blah. Right. And what we
Right.
no longer eat and what we no longer, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
All
Yes,
of
I
these
do. The
things
things have
we
become
still,
accessible to you,
wouldn't you call it?
or at least the
Right.
heirs. One wants to acquire the symbols of class status, right? And that includes,
Absolutely.
maybe where you shop and what you eat. That, yeah,
And
the
yeah,
trappings,
where you
right? The
shop, what
trappings
you
of
eat,
upward
and
mobility.
all of these
And
symbols, as
certainly,
we're always
what
talking
you're
about,
doing, the lessons you want to make sure your children have, or that type stuff. This,
which
yeah.
is part of where there's a real breakdown occurs. You know what I'm saying? Again, like
Hmm.
we always talk about and moreover, people in the generation above us, old people, right? Really, talk about the uh, uh, I don't want to use the term failure, but the error of not passing on the understanding, the homegrown understanding of what it means to uh, be under pressure and to be in, right, to be
Hmm.
in this oppressive structure, right?
Hmm.
The common
Hmm.
knowledge. And so there can be some real confusion. So, I mean, I know there's one young lady, I don't remember her whole
Well,
name,
hold
but
on a
she,
second. Hold on a second before you tell us about the young lady, because what you just said. I think it's
yes.
important. You know that error, to not pass down that common sense, or was always in a context of hostility toward passing that down, right? And that hostility, you know, um, can't be ignored. Also, there's already a tendency, or the element within the community that doesn't want to talk about
Mm,
that black stuff, right? That
mhm,
emerged, right, in '70s, late '60s, early '70s. A again, a platforming of a platforming of black capitalism in the, through the Nixon years, right? And yeah, the Nixon and Ford years even. Um, this kind of public discourse to not talk about that black stuff, or not talk about it in a serious way, right? Or in a political way, maybe in a cultural way, if you're going to do anything. And a real
mhm,
pressure from a lot of different sectors, both within the community and out of the community, to not pass that on, right? So that, um, yeah, a pressure, right? And a permission structure not to pass on the narratives, right? Not to
mhm.
give your children or whatever a victim attitude, where
Yes,
while these folks are
yes,
constantly crying about their white victimization, and it's
yeah,
but this
yeah,
is victim is an important assertion,
yeah,
because if a crime has been committed, there is a victim,
yes,
and victims deserve repair. So
Yes.
it matters that they want to remove victim from our language about our experience,
Yeah.
right? Because
Right. Right.
it's got legal
Right. Right.
ramifications,
Right.
right, under international law.
Absolutely.
So anyway,
Right.
you're a perpetrator,
Say
right?
that.
So anyway,
Absolutely.
I just wanted to add that, right? That that
Yeah.
I know exactly, because we have talked about it, right? That failure or at least error
Yes.
again to not
Yes.
consistently pass on, um,
Yes.
and maybe again an error. Maybe there's a class character
Please.
to that error, right? Because there's always talk, or at least there's a lot of public talk about having the talk with our young people. But what is the
Yeah.
talk, right? But
Right.
and we know, right, that talk often goes beyond how you interact with the police, also how you might have to interact with teachers, or
Absolutely.
on the job site, or with customers,
Absolutely.
when you have a job, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
Right. Right.
so yeah, but in a way, I mean, it's again that's part of the like the I'm trying not to use a psychological term, right? Or as there's a better, because I don't think it's accurate anyway. But a
Mhm.
way, well, I guess a cognitive dissonance,
Mhm.
where that even in those lessons, in terms of that error,
Mhm.
we still
Yeah.
often want to talk individually, right, and not
Yeah. Yeah.
systemically.
Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
again, going back to the BLEXIT and the Black conservative promotion of economic independence, always talking about individually, not as a people, right? Not connected to the rest of the African world, the Black world, right? In
Yeah.
any meaningful way that isn't somehow exploitative because you're a Black capitalist and you want to import something that you can play on the culture as a way of earning your
Yeah.
money. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. No depth, no
anyway.
depth, and also
No doubt.
yeah, the capacity to to promote this Blexit piece in a continuum, beginning in what the 80s of platforming and
Mhm,
promoting these kinds
mhm,
of
mhm,
anti-radical voices, anti-Black radical voices, which is
mhm, mhm.
anti-radical. We have our own species
Anti-radical.
of our own species of radicalism, our own specific set of concerns, but in terms of the context, right? The not only the left right, but what capitalist labor, that context in the West, that can't be separated from colonialism, that can't be separated from imperialism, that can't be, you know what I'm saying? All of these interconnections. Um, it is the attack on the radical voice, on the radical analysis, on the analysis that says the capitalist structures are the root cause of misery and problem and misery in the world, and the need to prop up these structures through brutality, violence, exclusion, and all of these kinds of things. And so, something that we always say in conversation, as long as the conversation um, can be kept, or dialogue on these issues can be restrained and kept myopic in this kind of really tiny area of discussion, or area of what allowable discussion, or you understand what I'm saying. Hopefully folk that are listening understand what I'm trying to say here. So long as this is like, kind of a very restricted,
Mhm,
narrow conversation that seems to have dynamism. It seems to have, you know, but step outside in an inch worth of context, and it's such a house of straw. It's such a
Mhm.
house of straw, you know. And we've got to be um, clear, clarifying, act as a clarifying agent, you know. Um, yeah, so that when we have these conversations, we're able to say, well, you know, we need to figure out the talking point approach, you know, how to make concise, targeted responses to the tropes, to a predictable set of tropes, a predictable set of, you know, because we're watching unfold. It's not, you know, hard to predict, but to you know, be able to counter that. And something that we were talking about earlier in terms of where the counter to this um, Lexit campaign can grow, if not in direct theatrical non-debate confrontation with these people, in our you know, in our institutions, in our churches, because there are plenty of pastors. We see a lot of them flocking to the MAGA thing and being up in that, and there are plenty of us who are not, and that
There are
is a
many more.
great
Yeah, no,
place.
that, like, once again, you know, MAGA, the right wing, they are very effective at platform, you know, of putting those folks on camera, right, getting them up front, but they represent a such a small percentage, right,
Mm,
of the movement. The so yeah, so many more churches. I mean, just, you know, some examples. How many black preachers were being, you know, were going viral for their comments around, you know, around Charlie Kirk and his
mhm,
promotion of hate and
mhm,
racism, and,
mm,
you know,
mm.
nothing Christian
Yes,
about it, right? There were quite a few. You know,
yeah,
that's but yeah, I agree, right? You know, the our institutions is where, you know, where we are, right? Is where things need to be challenged. And although it's also, um, you know, it's, I think research is showing that, like, you know, most folks in the United States generally, you know, fewer and fewer black people are going to church as such, right? It's That's just a general trend, though. Um,
mhm,
you know, not specific to us.
mhm,
But, you know,
mhm,
that we're still there, right? And we're still in other
mhm,
places. Yeah.
mhm. And they're coming for us in that,
So,
attempting to come for us in
right.
that
That
territory.
why
A lot
Charlie
of
Kirk
talk
ends
about
up at the church.
God-centered.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, going back to that video, I'm sitting here thinking part of, I'm imagining that part of the non-response that he got was, you know, probably, you know, some black folks sitting up in there saying, I don't need you to tell me, I don't need you to explain the Ten Commandments to me.
I don't
You
need
know,
you
I
to
have a
tell
home
me
church.
about my
I need
life.
you,
You ain't old
yes,
enough to even try to
you're not,
tell me about my
all of these thoughts. But of course,
you
these are young people. These are young. They're hoping to galvanize, you know, but it's not the
young people
same.
in the he was
It's not
talking to
the
the
same
youth, what he was
population.
talking to the youth
It was,
group
yeah, it was a
in the
Blexit
church.
piece. It was a Blexit. Yeah, it was a Blexit piece. So I'm gonna presume that it was their, you know, target audience, you know,
Hmm.
mostly present. But even within that target audience, you know what I'm saying? If let's say that the, you know, the young folk that they're targeting are black folks, you know, who have church homes, as we say, and who are, you know what I'm saying? I could very much see a reaction to, why are you attempting to interpret the Bible for me? I have plenty of religious instruction. Thank you. You know what I'm saying? But what are
Yeah.
you trying to do? You know, taking this kind
I
of,
mean, you don't have the gravitas you think
it's
you
really
have
a joke.
coming up in here. You just, I'm sorry. Just,
Yeah, except for this slim margin of people, this small margin of people who have all these have very similar characteristics. Thank you, Key and Peele. Sorry, but it is really, it is kind
Yeah,
of
very funny.
there's an accuracy there. Yeah, in terms of, and whatever they represented. The point is this persona. There's this persona of the MAGA MAGA or Black conservative
Black conservative, the Black
piece,
Republican,
because it's inorganic. It's just, yeah,
inorganic.
it's inorganic. It's
Yeah,
this is
particularly if you have a
they're
certain
conforming
age.
to.
I mean, if you're of a certain age, it's understandable, right? Because Black people were Republican. And why were Black people Republicans? Because there was a
Yeah.
time in the United States when the Republicans were the progressive party, and then they weren't, right?
And then they weren't.
And then they
So
weren't,
again,
right? And
step
things don't have,
outside this
and
context.
those are processes, right? So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
one other point, right? One other point, because we're
Yeah.
coming up, we've been at it an hour
We're
and
coming up.
16 now.
Yeah.
Another point that Dr. Ball brings up in that members only video that I hope people are going to watch, when they get a chance, when it goes, out to the, is available to the general viewing public. But he also, and talking about, so who is platforming, right? Who are these folks? Well, Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk, and specifically, right, his professor list, right? So he decided to take, let's take a look at went to the website. Let's take a look at the professor list, right? And there are various tabs. He looked at the tab, being tagged for socialism, right? So, the various professors, who are there might be at
Yeah.
HBCUs or not. But that was part
Yeah.
of his point, right? Who are these people? And some of these people, who might work at an HBCU, Robin Kelly, was there. A few
Right.
other recognizable names, and of course, a whole bunch of folks you don't know who they are, right? Because how many professors
Right.
are in the country? Actually, not that
Right.
many
Right.
relative to the population, but still, right? It's like you say, 1%
Right.
of a whole bunch of people is still a whole bunch of
Right.
people.
A
The
bunch of people. Right.
And then he's like, well, let's look at, they've got a tab for racial ideology or race ideology or something like this, right? And you see some overlap, right? But just the thought, right? So here you're coming, you're coming on these campuses, whether they're predominantly white campuses or the HBCUs, et cetera, under some notion, right, of exercising, your free speech and engagement of ideas, which we expect to happen on college campuses, should happen on college campuses. But at the same time, you're compiling, lists of professors because of their speech, essentially, right?
Right. Right.
And encouraging, one, don't take their classes, two, expose them, for dox them, whatever, all this type stuff, right? And so this is what BLEXIT is signing on to, right? So this is what you're signing on to. The silencing of Black academic voices. That is wrong. Let me put the right, because I got it wrong. I got it though now, and share it in full correctly. The title of the I Mix What I Like video done by Dr. Ball. So you can search correctly. And again, and in terms of the BLEXIT, it's not an exit from the system. It's not an exit from the duopoly. It
Mhm.
is we're being
Yeah.
encouraged to rush headlong into the arms of, again, open fascists, white supremacists, ethnic cleansers, genociders, whose
Mm.
policies are actively impoverishing further Black people, Black individuals, Black families, Black communities right now as Black unemployment rises, etc., and reject the Black radicalism that can show the way to exit the whole dang system, right? Or transform the system in the way that it needs to be
Yeah.
transformed, right? Um,
Yes. Mhm.
that, that right there is what we're being encouraged to do, right? Go from this side to that side, but maintain the system at all costs. And again, they're open about it. Some of the things you mentioned, right? What was it? Economic independence. Openly American patriotism, right? Encourage and promote and cultivate. That's the word I'm looking for. Patriotism in the Black community, but especially among these folks, college students who can expect to become the professionals and possibly leadership, right, in the Black community. But again, we are in support of working class leadership, right, grassroots leadership. Um, I think we can say
Which is not.
with certainty
Yes.
right now that the
Yes.
what we call the Black middle classes, the Black professional classes, the African middle classes, professional classes, petty bourgeoisie, globally has failed the Black working class, right? The neo-colonial model, the middle class solution has not
Hmm.
worked, couldn't work,
Hmm.
right? It couldn't work, right?
Hmm.
It's too reliant on the system, right? Its
Mhm.
power arises from the system and through the system. So it
Mhm.
requires, right, the system to maintain. Right? So anyway,
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that is, I mean, yes, chatted with you a lot this evening about the conversation that uh, Black people who are working for and pro social justice and system, revolutionary ideals, or let's say radical ideals, right? Have this genuine sense of contradiction and inner conflict, I should say.
yeah, yeah, for real.
Um, if they have, if they, as and if they professionalize and um, make a certain kind of income that, again, I think is rooted in a lot of falsehoods, you know,
Yeah,
because the that group of people doesn't have to be anathema to the
right.
working class. It's the assumption and carryover just because you have, a mortgage or two, and you know what I'm saying. Just because you have
Mm-hmm.
some of this access, which again is very puny, actually, doesn't mean at all you have to
Right,
be anathema. You know,
right.
um, it's just kind of this, I think, again, symptomatic of being caught up still and
Mm-hmm.
naturally, and of course, in
Mm-hmm.
um, some of these illusions of social mobility, and some of the illusions of
Illusions
the
of social mobility.
solidity. Yes,
Yeah,
and the solidity, and that this is somehow substantial, that it
yeah.
somehow means something. But we are getting these
Mm-hmm.
lessons too, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the attack on the folk who are uh, who are forming the great part of that base, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
are the good, and this can be doged. This can be, you know what I'm saying? Really, really messed with. Um,
Um,
just
you were
arbitrarily.
gonna
Yeah.
you were gonna share what a young lady said.
What it was, and this was really a part of that conversation, but it's a young, yeah, a young sister who was quite visible for a while, and she may have been a prospective Candace Owens type, but
Hmm.
wasn't Candace Owens, but she was a young actress. I think her name is
Oh,
Stacy.
Stacey Dash.
Thank you. And she was
Yeah,
kind of visible for a while.
she's so young,
Make,
but
yeah,
but you know how black
and
folks are.
yeah, you don't really know. She could have been 40, but she wasn't.
Right.
Right?
Well,
She
that
was,
yeah,
yeah,
no,
she was
yeah.
young.
Because what?
But
Probably best known for what was the movie? It came out in like 91 or
clueless,
92. Clueless. Thank you.
clueless. Yeah, yeah. And so anyway, to be seen a number of times uh, decrying anti-assimilationist values,
Yeah.
in the Black community,
Yeah, she was
that
quite vocal. I think she predates
for a
Candace,
minute.
actually. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
she may have been you know what I mean, some
Yeah.
kind of perspective, Candace
Hmm.
Owens, but
Hmm.
um, just in terms of the kind of exposure that she got and how many times you saw the mic, and
Hmm.
mic'd, these mic'd assertions,
Hmm.
particularly about assimilation. And aren't we here? Either we are, we want to be a part of the American dream and we want, but and it just totally, uninformed and confused and, within her
Yeah.
logic,
Yes,
within a
but
certain logic,
it's such a
but
clear
confused and
statement
uninformed.
of
Yes.
that, right? Yeah.
Yes. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, that makes sense to a lot of us. I
To a
mean,
lot of folks.
why, what
And often many
what
folks
connection
like her who have a certain stake, in the system, who have, made it in some kind of way, right? Highly visible.
yes, and also those of us that all of this again, all we do a lot of talking about symbolism and the power of symbolism
Hmm.
because a lot of us are just aspirant, you know what I mean? That
Hmm.
whole
Yes, I do. Yes, I
aspiration
do know.
piece.
I
And
do know what you mean.
we hold
But
the values.
I say that because I've seen it a lot, and especially recently, right? Folks who, and particularly coming out of the sports world, right? And there's a whole
Mhm,
thing there because I think there's a whole thing I've been thinking about for years. I think somebody must have written about it. The influence of these very conservative, often uh, usually white, very conservative coaches that these folks get in college, football coaches, basketball coaches, other areas.
mhm,
And I know I'm overgeneralizing, but can recognize a pattern over the
mhm,
years, and
mhm,
particularly
mhm,
highly visible
mhm,
athletes, for example,
mhm,
or athletes who then become commentators, right, or sports broadcasters, and are often,
mhm,
and again, probably aren't representative, but are platformed, and are often
mhm,
espousing the exact same line, right? That exact
mhm,
same line. One quick example: Michael Strahan, right? I believe a Hall
mhm,
of Fame NFL player
mm,
who had done
mhm,
went on, and it still still does like football commentary on CBS. Um,
mhm,
but did a stint on what, not Good Morning America. What was the other one? Kelly Ripa, right? He was Kelly Ripa's partner
mm,
for a while with Kelly
right.
and Mike.
Mhm,
But very
yes.
boldly, and I don't, don't call me a Black American or an African American. I'm just an American, right? This, yeah, and that, right, and that has been in place
Mhm.
for a really long time. Highly visible
Yeah.
Black people, platformed in
Yes.
the popular culture,
Yes.
and
Yes.
even someone like what was the brother from um, um, 60 Minutes, Ed with the earring. I can't
Uh-huh.
remember his last name right now, but his
Yeah,
similar type
of course.
things, right? I mean, it's an old,
Uh-huh.
it,
Yeah.
it's an old
Yeah,
claim, right? And
absolutely.
including certain intellectuals, right? That I mean, what's his name? Ralph
Yeah.
Ellison, right?
Yes.
There is no such
Right.
thing as
Right.
Negro culture, right? That
Yeah.
this is a very old trope and very useful
Mhm.
to American, to to the to
Mm,
American U.S. nationalists, right? American nationalists, American cultural nationalists, political nationalists, right? Um,
mhm.
anyway, honey, I burst in. Sorry about
That's
that.
all
So,
right. No, I get, yeah, yeah, that's important context, because everything old is new again. None of this
mhm.
stuff this isn't original. This isn't
It's not
new.
right.
These are the means, right, to this end of maintaining the status quo that is used. It's a pattern that's used against all oppressed people. It
Yeah,
is the pattern that you can find the similitude in every situation, and and the conversations are the same, and all of it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Is the same, because it's the same goal, the same outcome, all of those things. Whatever it was I was talking about, I don't remember, but it don't matter. It don't matter.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, at the point,
but
right, with Stacey Dash, right, in that
yeah, it was just that's the point.
what is it? The claim, the promotion, right? That the
Yeah,
insistence, right, on Americanism, right, and American patriotism,
right.
and the value of
And it is,
assimilation.
and the value of assimilation, and really, because what it perhaps, why it smacks so um intense, has a certain kind of intensity, you know um
Hmm.
in this period, and in from the 80s or whatnot, but still didn't have a lot of volume. Still, these people who were promoting these notions were dismissed, like the Larry Elders, like some brother wrote this book called Platitudes, that has stuck in my mind. I didn't read the book, don't even remember the author's name, but what I remember was the platforming and the exposure, and this discussion of leaving behind essentially some of the mores that were established in the community in through the that era of pronounced black radical expression,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And as such, what I'm saying, and we're
Hmm.
talking, the glamorization and the glorification of the party, of the, what I'm saying. But even as we talk about, all of that can be contextualized, you know what I'm saying, and is part of a mythosphere, and lacks substance and comprehension, and was successfully subjected to an uh, uh, anti radicalism, black radicalism,
Exactly.
social radicalism, socially based
Hmm.
radicalism
Hmm.
campaign, right? Because the
Hmm.
next 10 black people you'll talk to of a certain age in the community, oh, those Panthers were into white women, oh, they were a bunch of drug addicts, oh, they were criminals, and this whole lore of the poverty pimp and the program pimp and the this and all that,
Yeah.
right? So, but it becomes, I think, probably because, and please, this is I have a limited view here, so whatever you have to put on this, um put with this, I was going to say, because through, very much through the agency of the Panthers as a highlighted group, you know um and the hmm, celebrity, if you will,
Hmm.
of the leaders of the, and that's just like in terms of camera time. Now they won't put you on camera. They learned, you know what I'm saying?
Well, they learned
Um,
exactly,
and
and
they're also not
and the
pejorative,
skill of the
you know?
party for promotion, right?
Yes, you know what I'm saying? And it served to spread
But
values, and so they had a big
that point, the lessons learned. Don't put it on. Don't put these folks on camera, or if they
yes,
got to be on camera, in particular kinds of ways, particular kind of framing of the narrative. Don't bring war into people's living room again, because look what happened, right? They learned
look what
those lessons.
happens. Yes, yes. Better to keep it out of sight. So that era of uh, political leftness, political left consciousness in the community, and the cultural nationalism, the era of centering African consciousness. Now, how quickly and efficiently, perhaps, I don't know, I think I'm overstating this actually, but I was going to say how immediate the attack was on conscious rap. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
And the oft cited, you know, immersion of conscious rap in so-called gangster rap and
mhm,
and whatnot, but the suppressing, this ongoing
mhm.
battle to suppress our
Yeah,
identification with Africa, with Africanness, with, so they're still trying to get over dashikis and afros that, and
still,
they've,
right,
which is what
still.
you know what I'm saying, kind
I
of
mean,
sums up, you
natural
know,
hairstyles still make them nervous. It's
make them
still,
nervous.
you know,
Yes, not too
they
much they can do
still want to
about it
make
though.
fun of our names, right? Whether they are a new African name, rooted in some Niger
Yes,
Congo
right.
phonics, or
Right.
whether they're actual African names,
Yes.
which are
Yes.
no
Yes.
stranger or no more plain than any names anywhere in the world, right? I mean, you know, freaking name. But again, it's just how it's
Right.
weaponized, right? How and
Yes.
yeah, all those
To
things still, right?
dehumanize, to always
Still
to,
that,
yes,
right? And
always the
still want
acceptable.
to challenge any notion of, a claim to Africa, and
Yes.
still
You're
want to
not
do that, right?
African.
Still,
And all of the people,
our disunity is still a priority
priority,
for the state,
priority,
for all versions, all expressions of power in this society, in the system, right? As much as they can help it, um, or warp it to their needs whenever possible.
so that we must be, remain mindful that we are not Africans, that we're too distant and too distinct, and look at all of
And
this
all of these other
time and look at
things,
all of
right?
that. And while the people coming from the continent must, be mindful that these Black Americans aren't you, they don't have any culture, they don't have any
Exactly.
cultural basis. They are, we're
All the
depraved,
things,
and
all the
all of the things,
that,
all of the
yeah,
things. And
exactly.
so
And the messages we all get, right? And
the
somehow
messages
the
we all
folks in
get,
the Caribbean who go through the Middle Passage are able to keep a culture unless they're immigrating to their former colonies, right? And or
hmm,
metropoles, and then they're the ones,
mhm.
you know, we know,
So
yes, we know,
just
or
pull them
right,
out,
if you're
pull 'em out
not,
and look at
if
it.
we know, yes, I
Yeah,
don't have
just pull
to
it
keep
out and
saying
look at it. And yet there are the Black survivors. There are uh so many of us who are not deceived one way or the other,
right.
going or coming, who are not
It's,
vulnerable
it's still the
to
many and
that,
the most of us.
are not vulnerable to that. And it's really, really interesting. It's really, really interesting, but I always see the road leading back to um, making inspiring, inseminating, reinforcing a pro-intellectual culture, pro-intellectual culture, a thought mechanism. Because when we are not consciously and deliberately thinking about what we're doing intentionally and having, you know what I'm saying, thinking within a frame, anybody can come along and present some logic, some right, serve, offer us a bouquet of words that, make, this is a lovely bouquet. This makes sense. And you know what I'm saying? So we need our, antihistamine. No, we need our, you know, our consciousness, not the, an active, deliberate kind of, being about being a thinker and a learner. And what did they used to say? What was the slogan? Well, lifetime learner, I think is the one I'm thinking about. But,
Yeah,
I remember we were in a FIBA once, and a program was being done that I was attending, and Larry Aubrey was in attendance. And this was probably in no, this was probably in 2010, something like that. I'm going to say, clearly many years ago, but it left an impression because he made the comment. He said, we don't read anymore. He said, I remember the time when Black people were always reading. We were reading newspapers, we were reading books, we were reading this, we were reading that. We were, you know what I'm saying? There was a conversation culture, you know, and that it made quite an impression, made quite an impression on me. But
hmm
yeah, you know what I mean?
well, we're in
Uh,
the world, and in the
where?
United States, ain't nobody reading no more. What
Yeah,
newspaper?
exactly. No,
I
absolutely.
mean,
Absolutely. And
so
let's see what
yeah.
we can do, turn it around in our family, in our
Mhm.
house, in
I mean,
our,
yeah,
you know,
read, right?
in our
But
community.
for as long as I can remember, there's been a, reading is boring attitude, right? Or, as a kid, right? I remember that, right? And I remember
Hmm.
that. Um, though, yeah, we have books in our house, right? And folks were reading, right? But still, I just remember that attitude that somehow reading was boring. Um, and
Hmm.
running into that, right, once I got to college, right? Because it was already kind of a generalized idea, reading is
Hmm.
boring. It's a
Hmm.
far cry
Hmm.
from, if you can remember, from the 70s and probably made it into the 80s, reading is fundamental. Riff. Reading is fundamental
Right.
with the
Reading is
local library.
fundamental. Absolutely.
Yes. Um,
Yeah. In our
Totally
when
different
we were when
attitude,
we were
right?
kids.
And those disappeared, right? So,
Right. And something else
those just,
got promoted. Something else
yeah.
got
Well,
promoted. Some other
cable
notion of
television came in, got generalized, right? It wasn't just the Z
yeah,
channel, and cable
yeah,
television comes in. How long have games been around now, right? And even like
yeah.
I forget what you call the Game Boy, right? That's what, the mid '80s,
Right,
late '80s Game Boy show. I mean, that's part
right.
of it, right? That's the same time kids stopped playing outside. Just so great for the imagination.
All
I
of the
mean,
things.
all the
All of
things.
the
So
things. Yeah.
yeah, and in so many ways, right? Because because of the way in which the culture has generally changed, become less literate, more
Mhm.
more spectacular, right? I don't even want to say
Mhm.
oral,
Mhm.
but much
Mhm.
more about
Mm-mm.
watching
Mm-mm.
things, even the gaming,
Yes,
right? In which you may be
yes.
engaged, but
Absolutely.
it's a visual thing primarily, right? So
Engagement. Yeah, that's
yeah,
one of the biggest conversations,
yeah,
in turn with young people, and I can't keep up with the generations, right? But
but yeah, but yeah.
with young people talking about um the disintegration of social skills, the you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying, in terms of my young people's report, direct report,
Mhm,
don't really
mhm.
know how to talk to people, don't really know how to, the all of these kinds of things. So that which you were talking about, no, it's not even, you can't even call it oral. And that's also one of the reasons why folks are
Mhm.
engaged in collectives with their devices, and not with each other.
Yeah,
But yeah,
interaction
so
mediated.
we'll
Mhm.
clearly make it back to Blexit. We'll clearly make it back to Blexit, because they're about to try to act out and do some things, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it
Mhm.
goes for them. We'll see how it goes for them.
Yeah, we'll see how it
Hopefully.
goes. I mean, I mean, generally, right? If the Charlie Kirk assassination um, made it clear, anybody paying attention, that the general black population was quite aware of him, what his
mm,
message was, and have no,
mm,
have no quarter for
mm,
it, right? It's like,
mm,
we know. So yeah, it is going to be interesting. And as what you were saying
mm,
earlier, it is first and foremost an attack on the black radical tradition, on any form of radicalism, which
mhm.
remains still they are so afraid of radical left solutions that they just have
Yes,
continued so far to the radical right.
yes,
The radical right is
yes,
what is the power right now, and they are still shaking
yes,
in their boots around any kind of black radicalism that will emerge as they sharpen the contradictions. And black folk,
absolutely.
apparently, though we are certainly involved with actions, with the resistance that's going on, apparently we are mostly watching, waiting, organizing. Apparently, that has lots of folks in and outside of government quite anxious. What's going
Mhm,
on with black people? We thought they would be in
mhm,
the streets. They ain't in the
mhm,
streets. How we gonna have our
mhm,
race war if they ain't in the
mhm,
streets?
if they're not in the streets.
You know,
Right,
and but
right.
that don't mean ain't nothing being, prepared,
Then
organized, thought about, planned
yeah,
for,
yeah,
and
and
stuff.
I
Hmm.
think part of the answer to that is, well, we'll war on the people who are in the streets and start,
But that's
just go forward,
as they have
with
been
the
doing,
agenda and, do our thing,
as they have been doing.
um,
Exactly.
in order to, get our militarization off. But yes, the clearly will be coming back to Blexit. There was something that I was going to say, but it's lost. So it's all right. All the words don't have to
Well,
be
there's
said.
more to talk about on the topic. Black conservatism, its
Oh
attempt
yeah.
to,
Oh
to
yeah.
reach, get, make inroads, and the importance of exposing, who is behind
Yeah.
this, or who's platforming this, who
Yeah.
does it serve, who does it really
Yeah.
serve, and can
Yeah.
we um, ever hold up, the black working class for
Yeah.
for their perceptiveness, their their critical assessment of the situation. And it takes a whole bunch of brilliance to make what
Yes.
pittance they give you in social welfare benefits to last from month to month. Some brilliant
Yes, it
folks
does.
making it happen, right?
Etc. And we keep generating culture that is imitated the world over.
Over.
We
That's
are
right.
the ones that the masses, the black masses, are the ones that are generating culture. What
Mhm.
did I see? I think I was telling you the other day. I saw, like young sisters are wearing waist beads now, right? And that's the thing to do. And I saw a Chanel ad. I think it was Chanel, may have been Dior. One of these, you know what I'm saying? Very exclusive houses, fashion
Yeah.
houses, and their model, was wearing broad, waist hugging pants and had a chain around the belly. And you know what I'm saying? The whole presentation. I think she even had like the little baby hair. Her hair was definitely slick, right? Slick ponytail with some kind of was like, oh, this is how this is this. And it never hasn't been that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we generate culture, we generate thought, we generate, you know what I'm saying? We do all the things. We do all the things um under even under tremendous pressure. And we do a lot of suffering as well. You know what I mean? And we do a lot of suffering as well. But immiseration clearly has never been a uh what has never um stopped us from moving revolutionizing has never stopped us from coming up with ingenious ways to combat to push back, combat the system, to organize and strategize, to none of those things. You know what I'm saying? So that was what it was I was going to say. All these groups, the groups, because this must be had, the groups in American culture who can still be uh denigrated, who it's okay to denigrate, you know what I mean, and put down. Us always, it's always
Interesting
our
word,
core.
denigrate, right?
Denigrate, yes,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
can
yeah.
let me finish the statement, but please develop that.
Yeah.
Um, and poor white people, poor white people, and all of the caricatures of, they're a group that you can really, go in on them and their ways and their presentations and their, all these kinds of stuff. You can do that, and say just, really a lot of messed up a lot of messed up shit, you know. Um, because there always must be a scapegoat. There always must be a target for this thing. There almost always must be some group of undeserving, unworthy, less than respectable, some group that you don't have to respect, and whose humanity you don't have to respect. But denigrate. What were you going to say about denigrate?
Well, just it means blacken, right? Just that,
Okay,
it just
denigrate.
it means to blacken. Yeah,
Denigra,
that's all.
right? Denigra.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it, right?
So
That's all. It's
right
it's an
on.
interesting term, right? It's value laden
Yeah.
in particular ways, right? So that's all. And yeah,
Yeah.
right. I mean, and now everybody's fair game to talk about, right? If you want to use the R word, use the R word. That's what they were
Oh
complaining
yeah.
about. If you want to use the F word, you can use the F word. All this, how dare you?
Do it.
You can call
Yes.
you can use the T word. I mean, members of Congress are just using the T word, and yeah, this is they're like I said, they're feeling their oats. The racists
Yeah.
are. Um,
Mhm.
there's never been a time that they haven't been in charge in this country. This country is
No.
it's constitutionally racist, and I will say constitutionally in every meaning of that word, right? The but it was mitigated for a while. They're again full chested. Well, welcome back. And that was the plan, right? That was the plan from the beginning. But we're coming up on
Mm.
2 hours, and we can
Yes.
come back to this. There is more
Yes.
to say about Black conservatism because we haven't even talked about pre-Blexit, um, a pre-turning point interest in platforming
Hmm.
these black conservative voices, and the
Hmm.
predecessors, the folks who have helped with the intellectuals, right, of an era, right, the Shelby Steels of the 80s and 90s coming into this 21st century. Thomas Sowell seems to have made a comeback in
Hmm.
recent years, right, and
Hmm.
some of these folks that came to prominence under the Reagan administration and that heyday
Hmm.
of reactionary conservatism.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
right now, I'm not even sure. We're talking about black conservatism, but politics. They're reactionaries. They ain't even conservatives anymore. It's just straight up. MAGA is a reactionary party. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's more to say about, as you were
Hmm.
saying, there's more to say about Blexit. There's more to say about this black conservatism. We can talk about the complicity of black liberalism, and particularly that complicity in suppressing radical solutions, radical traditions, and getting radical messages and examples broadly speaking to the folks, while folks continue to organize on the ground in these black working class communities, rural and urban. So we coming. We're, you know, we coming. Freedom on the mind. You were talking about it. We're the survivors, right? Those black
Yes,
survivors worldwide, just like land back
worldwide,
worldwide. Black survival worldwide. Black
worldwide,
thriving worldwide. Anyway,
worldwide, worldwide. On.
it's 1:55. We've been at it for 2 hours.
It's
You want
time.
got any final thing to say besides good
No,
night?
the final thing has been said. Black
Okay,
thrive worldwide.
then we will say good night then, and I will go ahead and end the way I often end, quoting Bob Marley and reminding y'all, like Bob says in the Natty Dread album, the song Revolution. Revelation reveals the truth. It takes a revolution to make a solution. So make a revolution, y'all, and we will see you next week, if not before.